Hey guys, Megi Flips here with Onyx Designs. This is the next project. I've already completed several steps on this, so I'm going to start this video off with showing you what I've already done. Here's another project I'm working on. The top of it, the old leather, is all dried up and cracking, so I'm scraping it off right now. I'm about halfway done, and because there's particle board underneath, I can't really do much with this top, so I'm going to create a top using these pieces. And then I'm going to paint it 2 different tones of green, and I'm going to take some gold paint and repaint the hardware. I measured out all of the pieces to make sure they would fit perfectly, and then I marked the length on them to make sure I can cut them to the exact length needed. Once they were all cut, I laid them out to make sure that they were perfect, and I prepared to glue them down. Alright, so I have all the pieces cut. They're ready to be glued down. I took all these pieces and I fit them the way they need to be first, and I marked the first one for the perfect length for it, and then I took them all downstairs. I cut them all to the same length. I cut a few extra in case there were any issues, such as, you know, the one that cracked in half because of the knot, and I ended up with a perfect fit. So now I'm going to get some wood glue and very patiently glue them all down. It's all glued down. Everything's nice and even. I am very pleased with the fit. Everything seemed to work out perfect. As you just saw, I decided to brad nail these. I did 5 rows of nails to keep these pieces from bowing. So now they're glued and brad nailed down. I just have to fill these holes with some filler, and then I can paint it. Now that you've seen everything leading up to this point for this piece, I'm going to continue. I am going to next remove all of the hardware from this piece so that I can clean around and under where it was, and also I'm going to be taking this hardware and I'm going to be spraying it a fresh clean gold. Time to start cleaning. Now I grabbed my Dixie Belle White Lightning and I started to clean. Now the piece is completely clean and ready for me to scuff it up with some sandpaper to prep it for paint. I did find some handballs. And in case you're wondering, I am doing this in my living room, and the reason why is because it's going to be staying in our living room, because this is actually for our house. If you caught the beginning of the video, you heard me talking about how my mom and dad bought this like 30 something years ago for $500. And so yeah, I'm refinishing it and I'm going to keep it in my living room now. So now let's scuff her up. Now that the entire piece has been scuff sanded, I'm going to take a damp, lint-free cloth and I'm going to wipe all of the dust off of it. So that was just a light cleaning to get all the dust off, because I am going to be using some wood filler to fill some gashes and holes. So I'm going to end up having to sand that down. I'm going to make a mess on this again, and then I'm going to do a really thorough cleaning before I paint it. I got my Dixie mud in white. I'm going to go to town, fill in all these little gashes and holes. I have now sanded the entire piece, and I'm going to take a wet, lint-free rag and I'm going to wipe off all the dust. I filled in all the holes. I will do a close-up in a second so that you can see just how many dents there really were. You can get a good look at them. You can see how many holes there were. This is why I glob it on and then just sand away until it's smooth. And now the piece is dust free. I've wiped it down completely and just gonna let it dry, and then I'll be ready to paint. Here's all the hardware cleaned up, nice and clean. They're almost all the same color. These, I believe these are brass, and these are not. But I don't know that for a fact. I'm not really good at identifying metal. And then there's 3 different size screws, so I separated them in 3 different cups to keep track because I know which hardware each one goes into. And tomorrow, hopefully, I can paint these. I decided to soak them in some Dawn dish soap and water. I'm about to prep to paint, which means I have to take these drawers out. Now, if you notice, they are all different sizes. And I noticed when I was cleaning them that some of them didn't come in and out so simply. So this means I'm going to have to label them. You always want to be sure to paint in the same direction and go with the wood grain. If you're not good at cutting, you might want to use some tape on the inside of the drawers so that your lines look very neat. So it's been about 24 hours, and I was looking over this piece today and I found a few places that need a little bit of touch up. So I'm going to do those right now. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I will mention it now as I mix this up. These Artisan Mineral Paints by Melange are self-priming, self-leveling, water-based, have low VOCs, and include organic minerals. The top coat is required, so I'm going to do probably 3 coats of this, and then I'm going to do a top coat with Melange Paints matte clear coat. So now this, I don't know if you noticed before, it was a time lapse, so you may not have. It was very thick when I first opened it, and now the more I mix it, the better it is. It's a little more watery, like it was extremely thick before to where I really had to put some effort into mixing it up, but now we have a good consistency. So now we're ready to paint. First coat is on. I'm going to let these dry for a little bit, and then I'll come back and do the second coat. Here's all of the hardware laid out nice and neat. I'm going to spray it with Krylon Metallic Gold, and I'm probably going to need 2 to 3 coats. Let's do the first. The next step for this piece of furniture is to do a top coat on the top of the desk, and I'm going to use Dixie Belle's toughest top coat, which is called Gator Hide. I poured some into this plate, and I'm just going to wipe it across the top of the desk with the special sponge that is meant for this. So the first coat of Gator Hide is now on. I'm going to wait 2 hours for this to dry, and then I'm going to apply a second coat. Now it's time to clear coat the entire desk. I have the drawers out so I can get in between. The drawers are over here. I'm going to use Melange's matte finish clear coat. I'm going to stir it with a popsicle stick. I'm not going to shake this. And I am going to apply it with Zebra's fan brush. I am working on putting all the hardware back on. I did start the process off camera because there's a lot of it, but I wanted to show the process of how I'm putting the hardware on the drawers. This hardware is recessed and it had these metal plates in here and they were taped in, and I don't like that. I want to glue them in. So you'll understand the rest of why it has to actually be adhered to that. Once I put the handle on, you'll see. So I'm using Gorilla Glue. So I'm going to dampen the inside of the recessed area because with this Gorilla Glue, one of the ends of what's being glued needs to be dampened. So I have a wet paper towel. Now it's damp. I'm going to put a bead of the glue. You don't need too much, nor do you want too much because it'll squeeze out. I'm going to put the plate centered. Next, we have the bezel that the handle goes into. Let's flip this over the right side. So this is basically going to go like this. Let's flip this over and show you. The hinge goes here. Now to flip that over and put it here. A little tricky with one hand. Sorry for moving around so much. All right, now the handle is in place, and I'm gonna have to put these 3 screws in, but I can't do that while I'm holding the camera. So here it is. Now, one thing I want to point out is here's one of the screws. Notice I didn't paint it. I did not want to spray the screw because I did not want to mess up the threads by adding paint to them. So my plan is, once I have them all in, to take a little paintbrush and just paint the little tip on the screw once everything's in place, because having that dark against the bright gold is going to bother me. I do not like that.